Are you thinking about moving to Kansas City? Well, you're probably picturing world-class barbecue, passionate sports fans, and that Midwestern hospitality. But there's a lot more to living in Kansas City than what you see in the travel guide. Today, we are sharing the insider's guide to living in Kansas City, challenging and everything you need to know before making a move to Kansas City.
Hey, I'm Max and this is Zach, and we are your local experts here in Kansas City with years of experience helping people just like you with all the ins and outs of Kansas City living. And together, we've helped countless families adjust to a unique blend of Midwestern charm and urban challenges that define this city.
All right, Max, let's start by tackling the weather, the first real test for anybody considering Kansas City as a home.
Weather is a big factor when it comes to Kansas City because you got your highs and your lows and everything in between. Maybe start with a hot, humid summer.
Yes, I think that's what we're most known for. And I think anybody in Kansas City, if you ask them like, hey, tell me about the weather, they're going to be like, it's hot and it's humid. And it is. You know, our summers start usually around 90 degrees and we're anywhere from like 90 to 106. Well, if you're living in Kansas City, air conditioning is a must. You're going to have higher utility bills, certainly in the summertime. You're also going to need AC in your car. That's nice to park in the shade.
Yeah, you don't want to leave anybody sitting in the car without it running because, yeah, I mean, it'll take your breath away when you walk outside. It is a zapper. It really zaps your energy. You know, the good thing is it's only for a few weeks. And, you know, usually like mid-July to mid-August is about a 4-week time frame where it'll nail you. Some summers are worse than others, but most of them will hit that 100 mark.
Yeah, and you know what I do really like about the hot, humid summers is, you know, the days can be measurable, and like, especially if you're out shopping or going in and out of the doors during the day, and the evenings can be absolutely amazing temperature-wise. Kansas City, you can be walking around in a tank top at night and it's like 85. It feels perfect. It's beautiful out. So yes, there is kind of a perk to that. I really enjoy those summer nights when it's totally warm. You're sitting by the fire, enjoying the stars. It can be amazing.
If you're out fishing or something, you know, it makes me feel like think of walking barefoot through the grass, a little dew on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the flip side of that hot weather is the cold. The cold extreme. So you got about 4 weeks in the summer and probably about 4 weeks in the winter, right around. Usually it's not until about December 15th, maybe even a little after Christmas. Occasionally we'll get a white Christmas, but maybe like January 1st through February 15th can be a little bit on the chilly side.
It gets pretty darn cold, so you will want to, especially if you've got one of those jobs like you're a first responder. I know my wife's in the medical field, so she has to go to work, or, you know, people don't get their surgeries or whatever. So if you're one of those folks, it's a great idea to have an all-wheel drive car here because you're going to be driving in the snow. And usually in Kansas City, we'll get our snowstorms. I don't know, they always seem to start in the evening and like go through the night. So the people that are first on the roads going to work at 6 and 7 in the morning are taking the brunt because the sun's not out, so that stuff can't melt. It just builds up and it packs on the streets. And
yeah, and we don't get enough accumulation to where we're a well-oiled machine as far as a city for, you know, the plows being out and the ice. I mean, we do a pretty good job of it. It's not like in Minnesota or Colorado or somewhere where it's just a part of life. You know, it'll catch people by surprise. You know, you probably need some winter tires, some snow tires, or some all-wheel drive action, all-wheel drive vehicle. So, you know, it definitely helps in the wintertime.
I mean, front wheel does pretty good out here too. It's just those rear wheel cars. It can be challenging. The potholes are for real out here, and in the winter time when we have that super freeze-thaw cycle and then we got the snow plows 70 miles an hour hitting the road, just taking chunks out that can damage your car. So after a big snowstorm, when the snow plows are out for a couple days on the highways, especially because you're at high speed, you really got to look out for those potholes.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to keep an emergency kit in the car, at least keep a jacket and, you know, that sort of thing. It's not like you're out in really rural areas where you could get stranded and with nobody in sight for miles. When you're in the metro, usually you're fairly close to something or somebody driving by if you need help. If you get outside of this Kansas City metro, it can be a little bit rural, and it wouldn't be bad to have an emergency kit. Definitely having a spare tire and the knowledge of how to change it. Or, you know, AAA, you might be able to call them and get them out in a relatively short amount of time, but you need to be prepared for emergencies.
AAA's, it's super cheap and a great idea for newcomers to Kansas City. And then also to have in your car in the winter too is the ice scraper. If your car, you're going to maybe be at work and your car's sitting outside, and sure enough, you're going to have a windshield covered in ice and snow. So you're going to want to have one of those in your car.
Yeah, really, I think we get more ice than we do snow, just like a glazing, and it's definitely definitely nice to have something to chip that away because, there's not enough windshield washer fluid to melt off the ice. And you don't want to get stuck with bad windshield wipers and not enough fluid to make it home.
Yep. And then back at your house, you're going to need to invest in a snow shovel and some salt or some ice melt because you will be shoveling your driveway a few times a year. It's usually not too much. We're anywhere from like 2 to 5 inches, I'd say, kind of the most. But you're going to be doing that, and the ice melt comes in handy because, like Max said, in Kansas City, we'll get these light drizzles that freeze overnight. There's just like this black ice shell on everything. And when you take a step outside, it was like the sun came out and everything was melting and the gutter was dripping a little bit on my front stoop. And then as soon as it got dark, it all refroze. So you just gotta, have some ice melt ready for that.
Something you should know about Kansas City, and along with that comes the biggest frustration for me as a parent is all of the school closures. I don't know, growing up, it seemed like you had to pray, as a patron saint in order to get the day off of school, but they're pretty quick on the trigger nowadays, especially since they've got all the technology for where kids can work, do their schoolwork from home. I think we've had, 10 snow days.
Yeah, at least. I mean, there was I think they had built in 6 AMI days or something, 5 where they're doing school at home. And then after that, it's just pure snow days, which the kids enjoy. So yeah, it's been crazy this year.
Yeah, my kids are going to grow up to be meteorologists. I'm sure of it because they know when school's going to be canceled the next day before it's even on my radar. So, be prepared to have some cancellations with the kids at home in your hair. So
activities, babysitters, all that kind of stuff that kind of comes with that can be frustrating. So yeah, just be prepared for it because it's going to happen.
Yeah. If you work from home, you're going to have a plan to, keep the kids, off your Zoom calls all day. Yeah. So when you're talking essential winter gear or weather gear in particular, what are some other things that come to mind?
Something that's really handy. A lot of the weather apps these days will have an alert on them, so it's not bad to have that. There's a couple things that we get here that can be kind of come in quick and be traumatic. And one is we get major thunderstorms here, and with that is usually high winds. So, we just recently had a winter one, which is kind of unique, but it's not uncommon to have these thunderstorms blow through with 50 to 70 mile an hour winds, straight line winds that just will knock down trees or break branches off and just do all kinds of. So it's good to know when those come. They usually just come in a line, like a thunderstorm, real thin, narrow line, and just blows through, and it lasts 10 minutes. So good to know when that's coming. But they're also a fun event. It's usually full of lightning and really loud and dramatic. So the tornadoes, which is the one that's probably most likely to kill you if you happen to be caught off guard, they're not super common that they're hitting subdivisions these days, but they do come through Kansas City periodically. The sirens will go off, so even if you don't have your weather alert on your app going off, you will hear a siren if it's close. They're all over Kansas City, and they're just for that purpose, so you got a pretty good idea when they're coming. And the first Wednesday of every month at 1 o'clock, they will test those sirens. So if you happen to be sitting, or if you move to Kansas City and you hear these things going off and you're like, uh-oh, just check your date and time. You get nervous.
But yeah, something to think about with the high winds. If you're in an older subdivision with that, the charm and the mature trees and that sort of thing, those mature trees will knock the power lines out and you could be without power for a little while. So something to consider in the Kansas City area is a lot of people have sump pumps. If they have a basement, there's a pump in the basement to pump out any excess water that gets around your foundation. And it's good to have a backup battery system for those when the power does go out. It's also good to have some flashlights around or some candles in a drawer so you can see what you're doing when the power goes out. And some people will even wire up a generator to their breaker box to where they can fire up a generator and, if the power's out for a sustained period of time, that's a really good feature to have on a house.
Yeah, and there's even some now that auto start when the power goes out. I think you just have to flip a switch in your breaker box, but it just kicks on and starts working so you don't skip a beat. And that happens, and it can happen in the winter too. When we get that ice we were talking about, it can build up on the power lines and add a lot of weight to them. And then you get some winds, and so you can have power outages in the winter too. And if that happens, you just got to make sure that your house doesn't get too cold. Usually everything's back on the same day, but there has been a few cases where power's knocked out for several days in certain neighborhoods. So you got to either turn your water on and let it drip, because you don't want frozen water lines in your house, especially the exterior walls. Those will usually freeze first. So if you find yourself in that situation, just know that there's a way to, keep that safe so you don't have those issues.
Yeah, that's a great point. Whenever we go on vacation in the wintertime, I'll go and turn the water main off, the main water valve that comes into the house. I'll shut that off and kind of open up some of my faucets to take the pressure out of the lines, just in case the heat goes out and nobody's home. Thousands of gallons of water, pipe happens to freeze. Why don't we talk a little bit about understanding the Kansas City housing market? And I think a lot of it starts with financing.
Yeah, that's usually the first place to start, right? Well, the first place everybody starts is looking at pretty houses, and then you're like, well, how do I get that? And you have to go figure out your financing, right? So there is a lot of options. There's a lot of cool things. In fact, there's some incredible financing options right now. The real estate market, since rates have gone up, we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in the number of closings and the number of transactions in the year. So these lenders are coming out with new options. So starting at the bottom, where everything starts, is the first-time home buyer. Some incredible programs right now where it's 0 down, no PMI. It's a 30-year fixed rate conventional. And if you make, I think it's under 80,000 or 86,000, some incredible programs to get first-time home buyers in the door. And if you haven't owned a home in 2 years, congratulations, you're a first-time home buyer again, and you get to take advantage of those.
But yeah, usually the 100% financing is reserved for veterans. Usually it's only VA buyers, and the minimum you can put down is 3.5%. But if you're a first-time home buyer, you can get in there with 0 or little money down.
And no mortgage insurance, which is huge, because I hadn't seen that I've been doing this 23 years, and I've never seen a no MI at 100% financing. So
yeah,
pretty wild stuff.
You do have to have decent credit, I think 640 credit score. There's also USDA financing in the Kansas City metro area. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture, if you're outside of the Kansas City metro area and a little more in the rural areas, you can get 100% financing on those properties too.
Yeah, so that could be small acreage or just stuff a little bit out. So that's an incredible program too.
You don't have to do it. You can actually get better rates and better terms on your loan if you do have a little skin in the game. But if you do want to do 100% financing, there is a funding fee, a VA funding fee typically, depending on your eligibility status, where it's kind of like an upfront premium on the mortgage insurance that's financed into your loan. But we know a lot of VA-friendly lenders, and not, a lot of people think USAA is, a veteran company and, probably going to get the best deal there. It's actually not the case. You don't always get the best deal with USAA. So shop around. The rate will move from day to day. And so you really kind of need a contract in order to shop the rate. But we can coach you on how to do that. There's different ways where sometimes a lender will sneak in a big loan origination fee, and they use it to buy down the rate. So they're effectively charging you points to buy down the rate to offer you a better rate than the next guy. There's ways that you can get a loan estimate from a lender, and that you can also use what's called the APR, and that's where they will come up with an interest rate where they will synthesize all of those fees together, so you can look at one number and try and tell which deal is best. But we know great loan officers around the Kansas City metro. It's really good to work with somebody that's local. As a listing agent, we prefer a local lender, that somebody that has a good reputation in the area over the big national Rocket Mortgage and that sort of thing. There's reasons for that, and most of it has to do with timing. We want to make sure that they're going to close on. A lot of the local people, they'll actually run you through underwriting in advance and get all your ducks in a row. So it's the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. And whereas some of the national lenders, they'll wait to the last minute to do that. If there's a hang up, it can cause issues with timing. So we can definitely point you in the right direction to get the best deal and work with someone that you're going to get great customer service from.
And I will say too, if you are a VA and you're moving to Kansas City looking to use your VA, the VA rates are assumable. So if there is a property for sale that already has a VA loan on it, I have one listed right now in Woodneath, as a matter of fact, that's assumable. Always keep that in mind too if you're VA. And another 100% program that just popped in my head too is if you are a doctor or a CRNA, and I think they may even open it up. There's definitely some nurse programs, but if you're a doctor or CRNA, there's 100% financing. I think you can even go above that to build in your closing costs. So just more amazing programs with great rates.
Yeah, not every lender offers that. It's called a physician's loan, and not everybody offers it. But we do know some banks that offer that program. So if that's the boat that you're in, definitely lean on us for that as well.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you guys and see about what your goals are, what you're trying to do, because oftentimes we'll kind of match you with a lender that we think would be the best fit, that has the best rates for that program that you want to take advantage of. So we're a resource for that.
Yeah, for example, if there's an FHA loan, the mortgage insurance is permanent on FHA, but a lot of times the interest rate's lower. And so, depending on your situation, you might plan to refinance out of that loan anyway. So you're not worried about the mortgage insurance being permanent. Your goal is to put less money down or to have a lower monthly payment. So really it comes down to what your goals are, and we'll listen to that, and then we'll be able to give you some guidance on how to specifically accomplish your goals. Another thing that has to do with financing is the tax considerations. Several considerations in Kansas City around taxes.
Yeah, taxes. So we talk about this a lot, is the Kansas City 1% earnings tax. If you live on the Kansas City, Missouri side, where they take 1% of your income and say, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. So a lot of people don't like that. So we'll opt to live in some of the other suburbs on the Missouri side to avoid that. So it's just something you need to be aware of. There was some other stuff with building codes that just got removed. So that's not another big expense. But if you're living downtown in some of the condos, there's a lot of tax abatement that happened. And a lot of that is coming due now. So you need, where you're moving into, how much abatement's left, because you'll see these super sweet tax bills. You're like, oh man, this is only $300 a year. Great. And then, after you move in, 2 years go by and now you have a $8,000 tax bill every year. So it can be a shocker.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of agents won't tell you about, or maybe they don't just have the knowledge of. The industry is full of part-timers and semi-retired people, and not everybody's a full-time agent like Zach and I are and our team. So there's a lot of in the details around taxes. Another one is a neighborhood improvement district. There are some areas in Kansas City where they've, kind of come up with a special tax for that area to improve the area. One of those that comes to mind is the Piper School District, where the Kansas City racetrack is. And there's some the Legends is out there. It's a really neat area, but the taxes are a little bit higher there because they levied that neighborhood improvement district tax for that whole area. So, and then right along that same line of thinking is a special assessment tax. So occasionally, especially with condos, they will come up with a special assessment. It doesn't have to be one building either. It could be a neighborhood that they look like half duplexes, but are actually condominiums. So you really have to be careful, because the Homes Association can put a vote to improve the whole area and, slap everybody with a special assessment on their property. And you really have to dig through the seller's disclosures. And sometimes the seller doesn't even know in order to disclose it. So you really have to have a lot of knowledge around the areas and the taxes, and to make sure that you don't actually purchase a bad decision, purchase a problem. Yeah, you really have to be careful. And there are different tax projections. Another one that we've talked about before, and we actually did an interview with State Representative Mike Jones, is the city can come up with requirements, building codes that new construction has to adhere to, which is essentially kind of a tax in a way, because it adds cost to the new construction. They actually just passed a bill to make that where municipalities can no longer, that are, put stringent rules around that sort of thing. But there's just all different types of angles that you really have to be careful from a financing and tax perspective.
Yeah, and even something else that comes to mind too, like new construction. Oftentimes, if you're looking at new construction, you'll see it has a super low tax rate. After you close on it and live there for a year, the next year your tax doubles or triples or quadruples, because it was just that was the tax amount on that empty lot. So it was super low. And then now that there's an improvement to it, they don't instantly start taxing you. So
depending on what lender you're working with, a lot of them will project what the taxes will be and set up your escrows accordingly. If you don't have an escrow account set up for your financing, you could be in for a big surprise, when the assessment comes out for your taxes after you've improved the property. A lot going on with new construction in Kansas City. We've mentioned this on videos before, but Kansas City is really unique for new construction. The builders in Kansas City, a lot of other towns have big builders that dominate, like your Pulte homes. They'll build kind of like a cookie cutter. We hear that a lot. I don't want anything cookie cutter. And I think that's one of the great things about Kansas City is a lot of the builders here are little mom and pop builders that might build, 20, 30 homes a year, very reputable, and build more of a custom home. they'll build specs, but have a lot of unique qualities to them. And
yeah, and it's more like the actual builder himself is walking through every property, eyes on every property. He lives in Kansas City, he's in the neighborhood, where it's like you have these huge Pulte communities. Like the guy running the shows, there's no way he's walking through all these houses. It's built like an assembly line versus, more of a custom build job. So I would say the quality is, and you can feel it too, because the Pulte homes feel really generic. It's all about square footage and just, mass production of basic features people like. And then with the more custom homes, it's just higher end finishes, little tweaks that are a lot nicer and more enjoyable.
Yeah, and more character as you're driving through the neighborhood. There's more variety between the different front elevations and floor plans and stuff where, they're just not stamped out in an assembly line, so to speak.
And you can customize them. Depending on where you're at in the process, they'll let you customize them.
Yeah, we do have some big builders in Kansas City, like Summit Homes is actually a Warren Buffett company, and they do a lot of development around Kansas City and have some subdivisions, and they build a nice product. But Kansas City really has a great builder culture, and we know all of the best ones to work with. We also know some of the ones to avoid. So we're not going to put anybody's name out there, throw them under the bus on this video, but we will definitely have a conversation with you if you're considering new construction about who we recommend to work with.
And there is a lot of unique neighborhoods out here too. So there's a lot of, we don't have oceans and mountains, but we do have lakes. So you're going to find several lake communities if that's important to you. In Kansas City, there's also a couple of neighborhoods that are like airport or pilot friendly neighborhoods. If you're a hobby pilot, where they've got a grass runway is like in the middle of the neighborhood, and everybody's got a little barn hangar in their backyard. So there's stuff like that. What else is kind of unique? A lot of golf course communities where you can live on golf. There's I wouldn't say a stable community as far as like horse stables, but there is big horse stables out in certain parts of town.
Yeah, from urban to suburban, if you want to build a barn dominium and buy some land, that's really popular right now. We see a lot of that going on. So really it runs the gamut in Kansas City, depending on which is in the Northland. Really charming little lake community. So we specialize in lakefront properties, do a lot of work out at Weatherby Lake, and then down in Lee Summit, there's several lake communities. So if that's something you're considering, we have a lot of experience with lake property.
Come hang out on the boat with us. Let's find you a house.
If you're looking at a property on Lake Wacomas, might even show you the property from his pontoon boat.
Areas to avoid.
We actually have a video that is all about the most dangerous. It's actually one of our most popular videos.
Yeah, what comes to mind first for me is kind of the northeast side of Kansas City. Kind of has a bad rap kind of in the downtown area and then off into Independence.
Yeah, just to clarify, not the northeast area of the metro. That's Liberty, that's where I live. But the northeast part of downtown.
Yeah, it's still just south of the river.
Yeah, you've got the River Market, which is really cool. But just to the east of that area is called Northeast, and it's not the best part of town. You got Independence Avenue runs right through it, and
Prospect. And really, if you start at the river and work your way south, kind of the east side of 71 is the main highway that goes north and south. So if you're south of the river, east of 71, that's kind of the area that I try to stay away from. So I would definitely stay out of that side, or recommend to. And then also kind of the west side of downtown, the Kansas City, Kansas area. It's just kind of rougher down there. That gets you into kind of the manufacturing zone too, which is, like GM plant down at Fairfax, and it's kind of like river bottoms, and I don't know, just not a great place to hang out in my opinion.
Yeah, those are the two, if you pull up a crime map, you'll see what we're talking about. They're the red areas, but we can pull up that map with you. A lot of times we will do map videos for folks. So, if you want to go over the Kansas City Metro and talk about the map and the areas to avoid, the areas that you want to be in, we would love to do a personalized map video with you. So definitely reach out to us for that. Kansas City as a whole is really safe, and you can't hardly go wrong with the schools. But if schools are important to you, not a bad area, but the Kansas City, Missouri side, great area. Brookside, Waldo. But if schools are important to you, those aren't the best school districts. A lot of people will do charter schools, magnet schools in that area, private school, because the public school system in the Kansas City Mo is not ideal. Whereas if you throw a rock over to the Kansas side, on the other side of the state line's a road that will run all the way north and south. Over in Prairie Village, which is just adjacent to Brookside and Waldo, you have excellent schools right there. So something definitely to know about when you're looking at areas if schools are important.
But anyway, some places to avoid. I mean, I would say that Westport late night has kind of picked up a bad rap lately, which is still kind of a trendy, kind of hip spot. But I think just a lot of the neighborhoods kind of bleed into that. It's kind of the closest spot to go hang out with a lot of local bars. And when it gets real late after hours, it gets kind of kind of a gray area that you might want to avoid. It seems everything's kind of moved up to the Power and Light District, and that place is still pretty happening. And I don't think there's been a lot of issues up there for late night. There's kind of the same scene. In fact, Power and Light District has covered courtyard that's surrounded by bars that they'll often have concerts at. And that's a good place that, you can just hang out there and feel pretty safe, surrounded by people. It's, a well-lit area that feels pretty safe to me.
What do you think?
For what?
Yeah, the better areas, the safer ones. I think we're going to shift away from the bad and go to the good.
So yeah, the good side, I love the Northland because there's a little less population up here, so you got a little more elbow room. There's, I would say, more greenery, more trees, more green space, and less traffic. So I think that's an amazing spot. It's super safe up here. But they're like Johnson County, one of Kansas City's most popular and sought after counties is Johnson County on the south side of town. And it's absolutely beautiful and super well manicured.
Before we go on to Johnson County, let's clarify a little on the Northland.
Okay.
Because it's huge. I mean, you got Clay County and Platte County. Everything north of the river is a big area, and there are some areas that are better than others. I'd say, as you go east and west, it's kind of the opposite of the downtown. The east and the west are really nice, but once you get into the center of the Northland, you have Gladstone, which isn't bad. I mean, our office is in Gladstone, but when you go south of Gladstone, just north of Northtown, there are some areas that might be a little less desirable right in there, like the Avondale, maybe over by Worlds of Fun.
Yeah, Kansas City grew, like the hub was right there at the river. That's where it all started, downtown Kansas City. As it grew north, it just grew straight north up 169. So that is all the older part of town. And then what Max is talking about, now we have Parkville, we have Liberty, we have Smithville.
No, it doesn't matter what corner of town. If it's on the northeast, you got Liberty. If it's the northwest, you have Parkville. If it's the southeast, you've got Lee Summit and Blue Springs. If it's the southwest, you have Overland Park and Olathe. So on the outskirts, you're sitting pretty. It's just once you get into the center, you really have to be a little more skilled to navigate those areas. There are good and there are bad, and we can definitely dig into the details with you on those, because it's probably too much information for one video, but would love to have a personal conversation with you guys about those areas if that's something you're interested in. Overall though, really family friendly, and we have some up and coming neighborhoods. What would you say is up and coming? I think that up by the airport, we've got the Platte County R3 school district. Hasn't always been the most desirable because on the south side of the Platte County R3, but I think that Platte County R3 school district, they're going to build a Platte City South High School. They're starting to do all this development around the Platte Purchase exit of 152 with Costco, and they're putting in a new middle school, and they've laid storm sewer all through that whole area, that there's going to be a ton of housing and a lot of new development. So I think that area is really up and coming. When that new high school hits, I think property values are going to go way up in that area. So I really see that as one of Kansas City's up and coming. Because really Park Hill is kind of landlocked. I mean, there's a little bit of room to develop somewhat. Thousand Oaks and Riverstone and some areas are still building new construction. Also in Liberty, where I live, we have a Liberty video that will be coming out soon. So yeah, Liberty has this area that's up and coming called the Montage. So Liberty has already put in a new high school, the Liberty North High School, and it's been growing like crazy. But around that whole Liberty North High School is a master plan community that's going to have a ton of commercial and residential and multifamily, single family, and it's all going to just explode around the Liberty North High School. On the southeast side of town is Raymore, and it's a really up and coming area. You can actually get pretty good value down there. The bad thing is it's a hell of a long ways away from the airport. So if the airport's, if you travel for work or something, it's probably not ideal. But if you're looking for good bang for your buck, especially if you want to, have a spot down at the Ozarks, that's a great side of town to be on. So the Raymore area is really up and coming.
I'm sure like Lee Summit's got all kinds of new construction and exploding. I mean, commercially as well as residentially. So I think Lee Summit's really hot right now.
DeSoto.
And DeSoto, yeah, with the battery plant, they're going to be going crazy out there. They already are with a lot of rental properties and like these big apartments and condos, because there's going to be an influx of people that are coming in hot and need quick housing. But as they kind of cycle through their leases and start to look for permanent residency, that's going to be a big boom out on the DeSoto side. And then, Johnson County, just straight south, they're just keep pushing down that direction. There's a lot of land down there.
They've been up and coming.
Yeah.
They've up and came along. What's on the south side of Stillwell?
Yeah, Stillwell.
Stillwell's on the south side of Johnson County. So I think it's an area that is on the Kansas side. You have Stillwell. Just on the Missouri side is Loch Lloyd, which is where Mahomes really kick-ass golf course community. Mahomes built his mega mansion there. Stillwell is adjacent to Loch Lloyd. So I think Stillwell might be an up-and-comer. How about traffic? Everybody wants to know about traffic and transportation.
Traffic. Well, traffic compared to most big cities, non-existent. But you do have traffic, and it's mainly just during the rush hours. The south side of town's probably going to be the worst in Overland Park. There's this highway system 435 we talk about a lot that loops and circumvents a lot of the traffic, goes all the way around Kansas City, and then a couple main highways that dissect it across the middle. But the south side, Overland Park, that's our biggest suburb of Kansas City, or biggest city, and that's where over 200,000 residents live, and that's where a lot of the traffic is. And if you're not in there, and if you're not getting on the highways and commuting into downtown, it's not bad at all. I mean, the Northland is almost traffic doesn't exist.
Yeah, unless there's construction or an accident or something, which is kind of cool nowadays. Like, you can just plug in your Jeeps and, whether it's Google or I have a Tesla, so it's built into a screen right there, but I'll plug in the address and it'll show you where the traffic is. So sometimes you just have to come up with an alternate route. And Kansas City has a fantastic highway system, so it's not like you're stuck with one route to where you're going. But you will need a car, because you're sure as heck not going to find much public transportation around here.
No, not at all. It's pretty much, it's just if you're downtown and you're out having fun and exploring, we've got that streetcar that's free that'll get you in all the hot spots downtown. Yep, gonna have to have a car. Yeah, probably two, one for each of you.
And then really it's timing. So, like Liberty has a nightmare traffic situation, but only in certain times of the day, which is like 5 p.m. Everybody gets off, everybody's heading home. Friday maybe a little earlier than 5 because people are taking off a little early. If you're heading in, it could be an issue. So
yeah, and then like in the summertime, we have this thing called lake traffic, because everybody's heading out of town on Friday at probably noon because they've got off at work early. So from like noon on to the end of the day, all traffic heading south. There's a couple ways that'll get you down to Lake of the Ozarks, but those can be congested. And there's always cops sitting shooting radar, which kind of slows things down too.
And then one more thing to think about when it comes to transportation is parking. You really don't have any issues parking around your house. Most people have driveways. Heck, they've got a garage. You just drive right in. Or you can, if you're having friends over, they can park on the street, out and around your house. Not an issue. But if you're headed downtown for an event, parking can be a problem.
Yeah, a lot of the big events, like around the Sprint, or what is it now, T-Mobile?
Yeah, they call it T-Mobile.
So around it changes names every time somebody with more money comes in. But down by T-Mobile, which is where a lot of the big events happen, that's pretty nice because they've got a couple parking garages there, so they can really stack them up. But if you're looking for free parking, it can be a barrier. You might be doing a lot of laps. And that garage fills up too, and then you're...
Yeah, but $20 and you're golden.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind paying to park, then you're not going to have a problem anywhere you go. But yeah, if you're just going to your buddy's house or something, parking's not an issue. Real quick, road conditions, we've mentioned potholes. It's kind of a joke, but usually it's just January and February and then they all get filled in. There are a lot of construction projects though. I will say that, they can't work on the roads in the wintertime. So they're trying to squeeze all the construction projects into the summer. That can cause some traffic jams.
Yeah, and the last couple of years, I never used to see this as a kid, but now they're like working all night long. You'll see them out there at midnight. I mean, they'll have all these huge lights on and just on a lot of the highway system. So yeah, they're getting after it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they're, a lot of it's good. It's not just repairing the old, they're improving. So widening the highways, they're going with these overpasses now that earlier, then you're not trying to turn last minute and creating a jam. So they're putting in a lot of that going on at major intersections. So a lot of the infrastructure is being improved throughout Kansas City. And when they're doing that, you just have to grin and bear it and know that,
it's going to get better. Yeah. I mean, they just did the Broadway Bridge, which was Northland for us Northland people when we were going downtown. It's kind of our gateway into downtown. And that was down finish that. And there used to be like a stop sign at the end of it, which would stop. The whole bridge would be full of tires for a mile. And they've taken that stop sign out and just made it. I mean, it's way nicer now. But
so yeah, lots of bridge and highway updates going on. But, I'm sure getting around is important. But really what's the most important about Kansas City is fitting in.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to fit in
and be an outcast.
Yeah, you got to fit into the culture and feel at home once you get here. So embracing Kansas City culture. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, you're going to have to be a Chiefs fan.
Yep, buying off the refs and everything else, you just got to deal with it.
It is fun to be a Chiefs fan. Kansas City's a very passionate city about their Chiefs, and it's fun to be part of that.
Yeah, we suffered through a lot of years back in the Marty Schottenheimer days.
Most of my life.
Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare being a Chiefs fan. And finally, we got a little bit of time, a little bit of glory, so we got to take advantage of it and make the most of it while it's going on because, these times are fleeting.
Yeah. And there's lots of sports scene. I mean, if football's not your thing, baseball.
Yeah.
We've got
opening days right around the corner.
I know. Yeah. Right around the corner. We got a great stadium. It's super easy to get into it. Tickets are cheap for the most part.
Although they're trying to tear it down and build a downtown stadium. It's really cool because Kansas City, both the Kauffman Stadium and Arrowhead sit side by side. I don't think that exists in any other.
Yeah. It's the same parking lot. So you're just out there hanging out. And yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, for especially a car city, because I mean, it's a big parking lot.
Yeah. And what's best about it is the tailgating culture is amazing. Everybody goes out and brings their, everybody loves barbecue. That's part of Kansas City culture. So they'll bring their smokers out and barbecue out in the tailgate and, fire up their grills. And there's like a cloud of smoke over the stadium when you roll up and, people are drinking beer and raising hell.
Yeah, everybody's playing bags and throwing footballs and baseballs around. And yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is go to a tailgate. But there's soccer. There's pretty good soccer culture in Kansas City.
Men and women's. The only thing we don't have is professional basketball and hockey, but we still have, you can still go see a hockey game. It's just all the sports are here.
Yeah, and some of the best sports is the college sports. So MU and KU are really close. A lot of MU and KU grads end up living in Kansas City. They get to bicker at one another about who's better. And, right now KU typically has a better college basketball team, but they've been struggling this year. So you best believe the Tigers fans are in their ears about it.
Yeah, when you get here, you will see the number one shirt you will see is a Chiefs shirt. The second will probably be Royals, and then you'll have KU and MU. I mean, those will be the sports shirts that everybody's wearing, and a lot of Sporting KC. I see a lot of soccer shirts out.
A little bit of K-State action, but yeah, those are probably the biggest ones. NCAA tournament for college basketball, I believe some of that takes place at the T-Mobile Center. There's a big NCAA tournament. The Big 12 tournament happens in Kansas City, so a lot of college basketball action. So yeah, Kansas City has a huge sports culture. It's a welcome distraction from all the politics and stuff that isn't fun to talk about. You can always shoot the breeze with your neighbors about Kansas City sports.
Yep. Whether you're sitting in the garage having a cold beer with the neighbors or out tailgating, it's a fun time.
Yeah, it's a good reason to get together and party and invite friends over as watch the game. And, whether you're barbecuing at the tailgate or barbecuing at your house, you're definitely eating barbecue. And that brings us to our next thing. The food culture here is amazing.
Yeah. In fact, we were just interviewing somebody at the airport a couple of weeks ago from Denver, and he was like, that was one of his favorite things about Kansas City. He said was the food was absolutely amazing. But I never really thought about it like that. But you can get just about anything here, and the quality is fantastic.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be barbecue. If you're into sushi, there's a ton of sushi options. I really love Indian food. There's a lot of Indian and Vietnamese restaurants. Love to get a big bowl of. So yeah, it really doesn't matter what you're into. Kansas City has a really great restaurant culture. Mexican too, guys.
Oh, yeah.
You can't forget about the Mexican.
Mexican and pizza places. I mean, pizza's my crutch, so that's like usually when I go to a new city, I try to find a pizza place and go check it out. So if you need pizza guidance, yeah, please reach out to me. And I will say, just to end on the food here, is the price of the food is fantastic. Holy cow. Every time I go on vacation, it's like,
I know it.
you know, if you come to visit, definitely hit a couple restaurants while you're here, and you'll be surprised.
How about community events? What kind of festivals or things that are going on in Kansas City?
Community events. I'm trying to go. Well, we've got the St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner.
Yeah, Snake Saturday is this Saturday.
Yeah, Snake Saturday. So those are always huge. Snake Saturday will have, like, North Kansas City has its little parade. There's probably
Green beer all day long.
all that fun stuff, and the bars are all hopping, you know, and everybody's out. And then St. Patty's Day is pretty big in Kansas City too. Downtown they'll shut down Main Street or whichever one it is. It'll be a big televised parade. So that's I'm trying to just go through the seasons here. There'll be farmers markets. A lot of the cities or suburbs of Kansas Cities will all have, there's like Parkville days for Parkville. Johnson County does a lot of stuff. Lenexa has this huge city center where they have festivals.
During the fall, there's a fall festival in almost every little suburb. Liberty has a big fall festival where, you know, the carnies will come in and set up their janky roller coasters and get your funnel cake and all that kind of stuff.
And then, like, the world-renowned one is, of course, our barbecue with the American Royal, that's the world headquarters barbecue competition right there, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that comes to town. Monster truck rallies and the Circus McGurkus and, hey, art festivals.
Yeah.
There's tons of art festivals. There's a huge Plaza Art Fair that goes down.
A lot of Fridays at the Crossroads District.
Yeah, every first Friday is an art scene. Tons of concerts. I mean, there are great concert venues. In fact, there's a new one going in down by the riverfront.
Yeah, we were just shooting over there the other day.
In Riverside, they're going to build a new, really badass concert venue down there.
And then the old Sandstone, I don't know what it's called now. They always change the name again every year, whoever's got the most money, but it's a great outdoor space. It's absolutely huge. They've got, you know, seating all up front. I don't know, maybe 100 rows of seating and cement. And then behind that, where I hung out as a kid in the cheap seats in the lawn, a nice big slopey lawn that when it rains turns into a mud pit. Just trying to walk around and you slip and fall on your butt. And no moshing for me.
And you can't forget about Starlight.
But yeah, downtown.
Yeah.
The zoo.
Yeah, no mosh pits at Starlight, but it's a quaint little area by the zoo that, you know, occasionally you'll get a helicopter flying over or something, but it's really cool little, tons of seasonal activities, things to do in Kansas City. I mean, we could probably do a whole video around things to do, you know, activities that are going on in Kansas City.
Let's just start shooting from the hip here. We've got like OP for Overland Park. We've got BS for Blue Springs. That's always a fun one.
BS, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, we've got north of the river for the people that live, or the Northland is what we call ourselves that live up here. And then you got those folks that live down south, or those Johnson County freeloaders. Joco. Yeah, you got
OPs in Joco.
You got the Dot, which is Wyandotte.
Oh, yeah.
DOT.
You got KCK.
Yeah, KCK, KC Mo.
NKC.
Yep, for North Kansas City, not to be confused with the Northland. And then we've got
the K for Kaufman.
Yeah, the Kaufman for,
Kaufman Stadium.
We got the Mighty Mo, which is the Missouri River.
P&L down in Power and Light. KCI for the airport, even though it's...
Yeah, whatever that stands for. But it was KCI from the history of time, and then they just changed it like 10 years ago or something. So it's still KCI to a lot of people.
The airport code, when you're looking it up, I think says it. And then you got neighborhood nicknames too. So what are some? You got Brookside, you got Waldo. Those are hard to search if you look them up. It's not really a city, I don't think, just more of a neighborhood. Hospital Hill is another one that comes to mind.
The Plaza for your shopping and entertainment. You got Westport for, I kind of think of that as, you know, late night drinks and outdoor entertainment.
Yeah, the River Market, the Crossroads, the West Bottom.
West Bottoms, yeah.
That's tons of stuff. I mean, we could go on and on about the different abbreviations. Yeah, there's a lot of lingo you'll need to learn. So once you start working with us, we'll start, maybe we should come up with a glossary. Let's get a little more practical about the daily life of living in Kansas City. What are some essential tips? I think people really, what's most essential to people, especially if you have kids, is education and the schools.
We hear most.
Yeah. So some tips around school districts.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can go to niche.com and greatschools.org and do all your research there. But a lot of the suburbia school districts are going to be great. That's Kansas City's known for having great schools, or the suburbs are anyway. So I think it really just comes down to, if you want like the best of the best, of course, Blue Valley tends to have the best ratings across the board, but you're still A-rated school districts all over Kansas City. I think you're pretty safe there. And there's also a lot of private school options all around the city too. And in fact, a lot of the religious people will travel, they've got their spot that they really want to go to, like St. Therese or St. Pius. So you can really live anywhere in the Northland and still hit those private schools. So I think you just need to have a conversation, see what else is important to you about your life other than school, so we can kind of help maybe point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, with fair housing laws as real estate agents, there are protected classes and certain things that we can't really talk about as far as what's good, what's bad, and that sort of thing. I mean, but if you think about it, it's always the good areas are the more affluent areas, the more expensive. So, you can use a little bit of common sense, and we can give you some guidance around what's important to you. But Kansas City, by and large, has great public schools. So really, you can't go wrong. It just depends on what's important to you. If you're into sports, your kid is, then there might be a particular school district that has better programs for baseball, or better programs for soccer, or that sort of thing. So we could definitely tell you, give you guidance there, but it really comes down to what's important to you. Make a blanket statement about an area. We need some context to dig into the details. Yeah, what else is practical? Some practical things we need to talk about. Transportation planning, if you're headed to the airport. It's on the northwest side of Kansas City. There are some other airports, private airports. There's a downtown airport, but if you're chartering a private jet, which most people are not, most people are flying. If you travel a lot for work, then you probably want to live close to the airport, which is up in the Northland. There are some areas out south, as long as you can hit 435, that you can be at the airport relatively quickly. So definitely going to want to take that into consideration. We've talked about transportation around driving. You're going to want to have a car. Commute time, about 30 minutes from anywhere you want to be in Kansas City, unless you're going from one corner clear to the other. And you maybe budget 45, as long as you're not going right during rush hour, but 30, 45 minutes anywhere you want to be. The transportation in Kansas City is awesome. And the other things, practical things to consider are grocery shopping. Tons of options. I mean, doesn't matter what kind of store. If you want to just go to the local grocery stores, are Hy-Vee and Price Chopper typically, if you're just going to your standard place. But there are tons of organic grocery stores, whether it's Whole Foods or Sprouts is one that's common in this area. Costco, Sam's Club.
And then in the spring and summer and fall, we'll have farmers markets. There's a big one that happens down in the River Market area, north side of downtown. And then almost every major suburb of Kansas City is going to have a farmers market as well. So that's a great place to get produce.
Yeah, pretty much any highway in the summertime, there'll be a farmer with, pickup truck selling watermelons or tomatoes or something. So
yeah,
in the summer, you don't have to go too far to find good produce. In the wintertime, it can be, you might have to shop around a little bit. As far as other shopping goes, the local hardware stores are starting to go away. I think that's a trend going across the country. The big Walmarts and Home Depots and Lowe's are kind of putting a lot of people out of business. I like Ace Hardware. We've got one here in Liberty. It's a little bit more of a local hardware store. It's not quite as enormous. You can go in. People are there that can help you. I don't have everything chained and locked up. And
yeah, it's like everything you need, but it's half the size or a quarter of the size of Home Depot. I don't know how they get it all in there.
Another place that's important to me to shop is kind of an outdoors place, fishing, camping, hunting, that sort of thing. So you're going to find, your Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's. They're not the big mega stores, but there's one here close in Liberty called Rogers. I always like to give them a shout out. I love going to Rogers.
I might go to as well.
tons of little like gun shops and that sort of thing. You know, if you don't have to go to the big stores. In fact, a buddy of mine, Travis Hayes, owns Liberty Guns, and you know, tons of FFLs. You know, if you want to buy a gun online and have it delivered. There are what's the indoor shooting range?
There is Frontier Justice out on the Kansas side, and there's one that just opened. I was just actually there.
Yeah, so shopping, no matter what you're shopping for, whether it's, you know, an Uzi or a sandwich, Kansas City has tons of options, and you don't have to go far. I mean, if we're, you know, from your house to the grocery store is going to be a 5-minute drive, no matter where you live.
Yeah, and Amazon hits everywhere in Kansas City, so that's my choice.
That's where I shop. Our front porch is my shopping, you know, just perfect. Someone just shows up
every single day.
Since your wife is into healthcare, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's another practical thing that is important to people. You got your schools, and then, you know, what happens when you break your leg or something.
Yeah, it is good to be close to doctors and big hospitals, especially like the aging population wants that, because they're there every day, you know, checking up with their doctor. People with kids, it's also important to them to be close to an ER, because kids are always banging their heads against the wall and stuff. So the Northland has a hospital in Liberty where Max lives. It's a major hospital. And then they've got St. Luke's, which is right in the middle of the Northland, that kind of covers the whole. And then there's North Kansas City too, that covers the south side of the Northland.
Yeah, that's a huge hospital.
There is lots of great hospitals in the Northland, but some of the major ones are going to be on the south side of town. And that's where my wife she works in the Northland too, but she also goes down there. There's Advent, which is huge, and they keep building hospitals to the south. So one of the major employers in the whole KC metro area is the hospital system and medical. So that employs a lot of people. There's a lot of specialty offices and surgery centers spread all over the city. So as long as you're in the metro area, you're going to be close to something.
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier, a neighborhood called Hospital Hill. The Children's Mercy Hospital is down there, and there are tons of doctors and stuff that live right on Hospital Hill downtown. So
yeah, and I heard that KU actually Med Center just bought Liberty, or is taking over Liberty. So
okay,
we'll have KU in your backyard.
Yeah, KU Med Center has always been really reputable.
We have KU Research downtown, so there's a lot going on here.
Olathe has a big medical center too, don't they?
Yeah. And then MKC, if you're going to school for medical, you can, come get your doctorate, do your residency, it can all happen right here in Kansas City. So
yeah, clients of mine, actually, one client of mine was a professor. Yeah, so tons of healthcare providers, whether you're getting a colonoscopy or getting eye surgery. I just had eye surgery to replace a lens in my eye the other day. Lots of medical centers around town. So from top to bottom, we got you covered in KC. Kansas City is a place that's full of contrasts and surprises. So while the weather may test your resilience, it's really a welcoming community and a lot of diverse housing opportunities, making every challenge worth it. So if you're planning on making a move, don't do it alone. Reach out to us today, whether it's for that personalized map video or a Zoom consultation where we can go over the financing options, the different neighborhoods. You can get all the insider tips and avoid those metaphorical potholes that might derail your transition to Kansas City.
Hey, so whether you're still in research mode or you're ready to take those next steps, click on this link. It's our favorite neighborhoods in Kansas, and you'll get expert advice tailored for you. Hey, so click that little button and subscribe now for more insider updates, and let's make your journey to Kansas City a success.
Let's do it.
See you on the next one.
See you next time.